In December 1941, the US entered World War II. At that time, the Latinos represented 2% of the US population, with more than 2,000 women, children, and men who had migrated north from Mexico and Central America. And even though Latinos all over the US had contributed to the US economy in a very important way with their labor in agriculture, garment and construction industries, they were still a very marginalized group in the US society. They were struggling to be American, and many times they were deported back to Mexico and Central America. But, to some extent, World War II changed that reality. The US government and War Department were calling out for patriotism and participation of all parts of the US society to defend the country. World War II generated a new place for Latino women in the US society by providing them better salaries and social benefits. However, this was implemented because it was useful to the US economy and military objectives, and at the end, a lot of Latino women still face negative social conditions because of racism and sexism of the time. In this context, Latino women participated in a very important part of the war by working as nurses and, for the first time, by working on industries. It was the first time Latino women found a good place in the US economy. The contribution of Latino women in World War II was very significant. However, they have been a little recognized group because of their race and gender. It is clear the US government and wide part of the society had very racist ideas about Latinx. However, in times of war, they were very efficient in changing the common narrative to include Latinx in the war process for military purposes. The primary source we are going to employ women is a letter and a pamphlet from John Martin of the War Department in Washington, D.C. to Lieutenant General McKenney, Deputy Chief of Staff, in April 1943. Even though the pamphlet's picture refers to a white woman, Latino women were the ones who contributed a lot in the war production. As you can see, it exemplifies the gender hierarchy I'm talking about by considering women as a manipulative object that is useful to in the war. For example, Connie Gonzalez was a Latino woman that joined the US industrial production. It was 1943. She was 28 years old and left her job as a seamstress in Los Angeles garment factory to become a worker at the Douglas Aircraft Company in Long Beach. It was the first time she experienced being an active part of the US society, as now she was earning a lot of money and participating in the social life of LA. Similarly, while still in high school, Ida Escobedo began her first summer job in 1943 in a defense plant that manufactured incendiary bombs together with her aunt. Even though sometimes she argued their male co-workers were kind of rough, she was happy with her salary and happy to contribute to the war. These testimonies are only two examples of the multiple Latino women who joined the US war effort. Even though World War II was a possibility for Latino women to serve the United States and to achieve individual desires by gaining relatively high wages, these stories also tell us many contradictions of the war. As it can be seen in the pamphlet, women were still perceived as less than men. Even the press was covered in strict gender conventions in propaganda. And in the case of Latinas, they also experienced discrimination at the workplace and in society, even though they were being a very important part of the US home front.